We hear today one of the most beautiful litanies of faith in all of Scripture in that second reading from the letter to the Hebrews. And what a clear and really marvelous definition we are given. Faith is the realization of what is hoped for and evidence of things not seen. And we see how the gift of faith unfolded in the life of Abraham. Faith was the persistent drumbeat that resonated in the heart of Abraham. It was the flashing light that seemed to pulse just at the moment when he needed to see clearly in the darkness. It was a slow and steady knock that grew louder and louder and drew Abraham out of his place of comfort into a land that was unknown, a land full of hope and expectation. Faith was a huge explosion that opened up a totally new world for Abraham, a new horizon that set him on the path of discovery. And faith can be the same for us. It can have the same dramatic impact for us as it did for Abraham. Faith is the realization of what is hoped for. You know, I don't think it would take long for us to generate a pretty good list of things that we hope for in this life. From the most mundane things like another month of summer without school. I'm sure there are a lot of kids that are hoping for that. I'm not so sure the parents are hoping for the same thing. Some of them are ready to kick them out the door, I think. But from the most mundane things in life to the most profound, like healing from illness or a lasting peace in our world. It is the realization of what is hoped for. And that means a couple of things. First of all, it means that we have to realize what we're hoping for. We have to be aware of what it is that we are looking for in this life. What do we want out of life? What gets us out of bed in the morning? Why do we go to work or to school? Or why do we go searching for love? You know, we often skip this step of faith because we think of faith as just kind of believing what we're told. We use this definition. We just accept what other people tell us. But faith requires that we ask ourselves some pretty important questions. Because if we don't know why we do what we do, or what it is that we are looking for in this life, then how do we know when God responds? How do we know when God is seeking us out and giving us an answer to what it is that we're looking for? The realization of what is hoped for means that we have to come to some clarity for ourselves of what it is that we want out of life. What are we looking for? What do we desire from life? But the realization of what is hoped for also means that God makes something happen. It means that God takes this hope in our hearts and He somehow brings it into being. He is the great potter or the great carpenter who makes these wonderful creations. And fortunately for us, God is much more creative than we are, thank God. God surprises us by how He responds and when He responds. We hear it in our gospel today. You also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come. He responds when we're not quite ready, and in a way that is surprising to us. Really, you know, we don't have to look much farther than the example of Abraham that we're given. At the age of 99, do we really think that he expected to be the father of many nations, or that he expected even to have one child for that matter? Or Sarah, Scripture tells us that Sarah was sterile, which, tends to exclude people from having children. And we hear that she laughed at God when he told her that a year later she would be with child. It seemed impossible for them. But you better believe that Abraham and Sarah desperately wanted a son. You better believe that they were begging God to give them someone who would continue their lineage. You better believe that they were begging and weeping day after day that God would grant them the gift of a child. And that is all God needed. The hope of one couple, the hope of Abraham and Sarah, one couple hoping for one child. And look at what God did with that. One child becomes many nations. This desire for one simple thing, God takes that desire and blows it open, creates something that is totally unexpected, totally beyond what Abraham and Sarah could have hoped for. And this is what God does for us. He takes that tiny desire, that seed of a desire for hope, and he blows it open. Faith is the realization of what is hoped for. Faith is when God takes that tiny hope, that tiny desire, and he makes it something great. Friends, this is what God offers us. He says to us, I will take what is in your heart if you will let it go, and I will make it something great. I will blow it open so that it becomes something so much more, something that is so far beyond what you can imagine. Faith is absolutely essential for us. It's not a nice bonus in life. Like, well, it's nice if you have faith, but if you don't, you can kind of get by. No, faith is essential for us. It helps us to keep moving in life. Without faith, we get stuck in our own little world, with our own little ideas, controlling the things that we can control and going only as far as our mind will take us. But faith takes us beyond that. Faith helps us to recognize things that we can't see without it. It shows us the unseen things, the invisible things that lead us beyond ourselves into something great. Again, we hear it today. In that second reading, now they desire a better homeland, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. God has prepared a city for them. God has prepared a place for us. God has prepared this place as a place where our hope can be blown open. But this place isn't enough. It's not enough for us to just kind of settle in our pews and get cozy. God always wants to lead us beyond. And that is why the greatest gift that you offer to our parish is not your volunteer hours. It is not, God forbid, your tithing. The greatest gift that you give to this parish is not just showing up to Mass. The greatest gift that you give to this place is your desire for Christ. The greatest gift that you give to this parish is your desire for Christ. Because that is what we follow. We don't follow our grand schemes. We don't follow our big plans for what we think we can make of this place. What we follow is your desire to see him, your desire to love him. But we have to know that desire, otherwise we can't follow it. If you have a desire for truth, then tell us, we can follow that. We can help you to understand more fully who God is. If you have a desire for beauty, then tell us, because we can follow that desire. to discover how he's pouring himself out for us. If you desire a greater sense of community, then tell us so that we can follow that desire for community. We need your desire for Christ. There is nothing more that we ought to be following besides that, because God manifests himself by generating that desire and that hope in you. So today, look into your hearts and ask what it is that you most deeply desire in your relationship with God. And let's allow this place to be a place where that desire and that hope can be realized, and where those things that are invisible, things that are unseen, can come to the light, so that we can celebrate the fullness of faith and the fullness of hope present among us.